My friend and Her Excellency Hilaal has asked me to give a few opening remarks, which I've prepared, which will be very brief. I stand here in front of you actually with a lump in my throat and despair in my heart that since we met here last year, that this is the absolute carnage and devastation and tragedy that we are facing in Gaza and the West Bank as well, but obviously Gaza is worse. I just find it very difficult to believe that Gaza's gone from what we would always write about as an open-air prison to being a graveyard for women, men, children, particularly 70% being men, women and children, the most vulnerable. And as I said before, as of the last few days, it's about 45,000 people who have now died in Gaza. Weeks ago, they were saying 10,000 were still unaccounted for under the rubble. You know, when we had the earthquakes in Turkey, I remember feeling so devastated for those children and those people who were trapped. But the whole world mobilized to get them out from under the concrete. And we watched these children with their stories that they came out alive after a week, after 10 days. And I sometimes wonder, how did we not think enough about the fact that these children, these men and these women have been lying under the concrete and they're calling out and nobody's coming with heavy lifting equipment. Nobody is coming to rescue them. That is going to be their fate, their destiny to live that agonizing death. And then there are the people that are trying to get help in the hospitals. I'm sure many of you have children. I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old now. And I'm trying to imagine those two kids of mine going through an operation with no anesthetic. And this is what Palestinian children have been doing every single day for the last year, over a year of this genocide. And that's why I really salute all of you for being here, because you're saying that you care, that we're one humanity, and that we're not going to forget, and we're going to make sure that somehow there's going to be accountability for what's happened. You know, we always write in our reports, there are 1,200 entire families in Gaza that have been wiped off the population registry. Do you know what it means to have an entire family? The Embassy of Palestine, their diplomat Hilaal al-Dramli was from Gaza. He's now in Denmark, he's posted to Denmark. He had 60 members of his own family who died, and his family, his wife and his girls are here today with us. If you can imagine 1,200 families, that could be as many as 60 or 100 people who no longer exist. That family's surname has been wiped out. I've been saying for the last year that silence on Gaza is complicity. And please clap if you agree with me on that. I think many of you may know this statistic, that in the last year, 85,000 tons of explosives have been dropped on Gaza. Gaza is the same land area as Los Angeles, but it has 3 times the population. Do you know 85,000 tons of explosives is 4 times the explosive power of the atomic bombs that were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima? I've been to Hiroshima. I've seen, even to this day, the devastation caused by just one atomic bomb. It's beggars belief sometimes that this is what has been happening in Gaza. I have a son who right now is on camp, and he watches Al Jazeera alerts the whole day, so I find I have my own personal assistant because he's always trying to tell me what I've missed. And his dad, who was our veteran, Ebrahim, was really someone who fought for Palestine. And I told him in a letter to camp, I said, you know, Caden, what I read today is that the amount of greenhouse gas emissions that have been caused by the bombing this year in Gaza is the same emissions as 26 countries' annual emissions, 26 countries. But the most incredible thing is that the emissions that will be caused by rebuilding Gaza, however that ends up happening, will lead to the emissions of 135 countries, annual emissions of 135 countries. I mean, we see these bombings happen every day and the billowing clouds of smoke, but it just gives you a sense of how absolutely traumatic it is. And I really wanted to share something with you that I found out last week when I was writing a report on Palestine. I talked to one of the very well-known Israeli economists who is actually now living in exile in Germany. And he told me that in the first few hours after the attacks of October 7th, the Israeli government contacted Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. And they told them that they need to procure massive servers. And because they had been victimized, their people had been victimized, it was very quick to procure these servers. They spent millions of dollars on these servers. And into those servers went all the data from the intelligence gathering of the Israeli state, so facial recognition, eavesdropping, and other intelligence data. And the algorithms in these servers then identified targets to kill in Gaza. They identified 30,000 targets. The most horrific part of it is that they then created what's called a collateral factor of 100. That means for each person that was targeted, it would be acceptable, according to the algorithm, to have 100 people in the vicinity die. When you say 30,000 times 100, you get 3 million people. The population of Gaza is 2.4, or it was 2.4 million. And he said that is the genocide. And I just personally think of that as the clinical barbarity of this war, if you can imagine. And one day, all of our grandchildren are going to look at us and they're going to ask, what did you do to stop the genocide? They will ask the same way that they asked people in Germany, what did you do to stop it? And there cannot be an equivalence between the resistance and what the occupying power has done in this last year, funded and armed by outside powers. We usually like to quote the UN rep, Francesca Albanese. And Francesca recently wrote in her UN report that the violence unleashed on Palestinians in Gaza is part of a systematic, intentional, state-organized forced displacement of the Palestinians. And she warned that ongoing genocide is accelerating because of the complicity of the international community and their indifference. And if we don't halt this genocide, the Palestinian population may not continue to exist. It could cease to exist. And I wanted to actually share with you, I'm looking for my phone here. We have a really wonderful citizen in South Africa. His name is Jonathan Whittle. And he has been, if you can imagine, running OCHA's operations in Gaza from East Jerusalem for the entire length of this genocide. And he wrote to me on the 20th of October, because I didn't realize he had that role, and I thought he was a good contact. He said, "Hi Shannon, the situation in the north of Gaza is horrifying. We haven't seen the speed of death and destruction like we are seeing now. 2 hospitals attacked, and 1 remaining hospital barely functioning and being denied from receiving fuel and supplies. Schools that are shelters are being forcibly evacuated. Men and boys are being separated from women and children. Reports of executions. Our efforts to reach people who are trapped under the rubble have been denied." I'll forward you tonight a semi-official document and I'm putting together, because I'm trying as much as possible to get this message out as officially and best as we can. That just says it all, and I don't know how someone like that can even cope with the stress. Anyway, I'd like to end by saying that the fight for Palestine is part of a global fight for human rights. And our case at the International Court of Justice, which, Minister, I am so proud to be a South African that we have done what we did and taken such a moral stand. But it's not just a legal case. It is a demonstration of humanity, of humanity's shared obligations to prevent atrocities, to prevent genocide, and to uphold the sanctity of life. And I think it's quite amazing that on the 28th of October, South Africa filed its memorial, thousands of pages of evidence of genocide in Gaza. And we have proven, we believe we have proven the intent to destroy the Palestinian people. What we're waiting for now is for more countries to join on and support our case officially. There are only 11 countries, and we really think that there should be many more.